Welcome, parents. Welcome to Walk the Talk. This is episode 3 with Marelise Culbert and Isla Reddin. And today we're going to answer some of your questions. So one of our requests the last couple of times was that we are able to start engaging with you with the questions that you're asking that are important to you. So actually, these 3 that we're going to talk about today sort of have a theme, a thread that is running through them. So that's going to be interesting for all of us to think about that. So the first one that we're going to talk about is how can parents help their children develop problem-solving skills? And the way we're going to do this is we're going to sort of divide and conquer. So Marelise, as ever, is going to go with the younger kids. I'm going to go with the older kids. So tackling this particular problem, Marelise, I'm going to let you start with how can parents help their children develop problem-solving skills?
Thank you, Isla. It's great to be here. Yes, I think this is incredibly important. And I think if I knew earlier on that one should actually start with problem solving the moment one can, because sometimes you think, oh, they're still too small, they don't understand, they can't understand the implications. But I think the sooner you start, the better, because you want the child to feel involved in what's happening at the home. There's not just a strict set of rules that need to be followed, or mom's forever saying no, 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 when in fact, it's for all logical reasons, it should be yes. If you involve the child by using whatever activity you are engaged in and ask simple things like, what do you think would happen if we did it this way? Or what do you think would happen if that person changed their way? Or whatever the situation is, whether you're cooking food, if you are cooking in the kitchen together and you're putting things, adding it to the pot, to ask yourself, why do you think we do it this way? What do you think is a possible outcome if we changed it up a little bit? And just to get the child's mind going, because I feel that the sooner you start, the sooner the child's going to start understanding bigger lessons, and the more you can learn about your child at the same time, because sometimes we just assume that this or that is what the child is seeing, and that's kind of the boundary in which they're operating. But the moment that child starts talking and starts thinking about things, it's actually quite amazing what comes out. So I don't think it's ever too soon to start with problem solving. I think as soon as the child can start talking, you are probably going to learn a few things that you didn't know.
Yeah, no, I agree with you totally. And if I take that into the teenage years, if you're just starting to expect some problem-solving skills to emerge as a teenager, and there's been no foundational work that's taken place, it's going to be very difficult, because one of the things that I feel very, very strongly about with our education system is that it does not foster critical thinking, problem solving, creative problem solving, these skills that are absolutely essential to our success in life. They're not promoted, we're not taught to think in our education system. Therefore, that has to happen in the home. And the ramifications, so to speak, of it not happening, if we're not expecting our kids to learn to problem solve, are that we can go into university and the workplace, and then the feedback is really magnified with kids really struggling. They don't have the skill set. So that's kind of the reason to start early. But the how to more at the teenage years is one of the things that we do know from the research is the brain in the teenage years becomes so incredibly efficient and effective and starts to motor much faster. We talk about the Ferrari with no brakes, but we can really use the Ferrari analogy to say, give them so much more to think about, to consider, to research, engage kids in things that they are truly interested in, so that they can then develop those ideas into skills. They can consider things, they can problem solve, give them more opportunity to foster independent thinking on all levels. and it's going to be beneficial for the kid in school, beneficial as they think about college and workplace and go forward. Mm. So how can parents balance supervision with giving their children the freedom to explore and learn on their own? So maybe I'll start. Do I start this one from the teenage perspective? This is it's a tricky one, and parents really struggle here. So they struggle with the fact that, especially social media now, it's so difficult to have any kind of view on what our kids are seeing, where they're participating. So there's a real tendency for parents, in order to keep their kids safe, to be more intrusive, not respect their privacy as much as they really should. And it's a very tricky play between, I need to keep them safe, and keeping them safe means I need to know where they are at all times, and I need to know what their eyes are on, and et cetera, and at the same time, you've got to give them independence. You've got to build trust. You cannot be hovering over everything they're doing, because you're not going to be there forever. So there's this aspect of having to trust and then having to learn, and it all, at the end of the day, really comes down to communication, and communication with expectations. And I think just being able to talk about why, as a parent, why you have rules, the fact that you're trying to keep your kids safe there, and have it be something that your teenager can really, you're open to, and you welcome the discussion, that it's not black and white, it's all very, very gray. And being able to build trust and have it go both ways, and then not, unless there's huge lack of safety, not completely freak out when things go wrong, because they will.
Yes, that's very true. And the key thing, one of the key things that you pointed out there, which I think also needs to start as early as possible, is that communication that builds trust. And this is why, by not just laying down the rules and trying to enforce these rules at every turn, but actually hear your child, help them discover what is it that is really important to them, what is it that they find difficult or challenging, what is it that they struggle with and normally come and ask help for, what is it, which areas do they feel most comfortable in, and then the more you can discuss that and have open communication around that, the more you are fostering that wonderful trust bond that I think is key in the teenage years. But you're not going to build it in the teenage years. That foundation needs to be laid solid and strong right from the start. And I think if you can help them think through every situation with all the possible outcomes, and based on that, help them find what they feel is true to themselves and how far they want to go with that, and then encourage and support them in that. I think you are going to build the kind of relationship where, even when things do go horribly wrong, which they often do in the teenage years, your child will still feel secure and safe enough to come and talk to you about it, because they have learned all the years prior to that my mom does understand. I can talk to her about these things. She's not just going to get mad and ground me and, do all those things, which is actually, she knows me and she will help me find a way through this. And I honestly think that is by far one of the greatest benefits of being a parent, is to be able to have that kind of relationship with your child throughout. I don't know. I don't think there's a better relationship than that.
I agree with you. And, if we had the rest of the day, I have some amazing stories of things that happened with my teenagers where, one particularly that comes to mind, where, thank God, the relationship was so solid that he picked up the phone to me and he said, we have a problem. That we were able to, I didn't have the solution, but he didn't have the solution either. And we literally just went through what are the potential solutions we could find here, or how could we proceed? So yeah, I think, but as you say, none of this, everything that we talk about, very difficult if the foundation hasn't been laid to some extent, at least before. If you're starting from scratch at 13, 14, 15, it's definitely a lot harder, a lot harder. Okay, question number 3. What are some strategies for teaching children about the importance of following rules and guidelines? So what's interesting about these 3 is they do sort of weave together, which I think is great. So I'll let you start there. What are some strategies for teaching children about the importance of following rules and guidelines?
Okay. We are going to put rules in place long before the children are able to understand the true value in it. So that's true. So maybe an easy one right from the start would be to create this safe space where you are comfortable. Your child they can engage in play, do all sorts of things under your watchful eye without them knowing that you are keeping an eye out. They need to feel that they are trusted within this space. You know, they've got the freedom to explore, but it's still within the safe space. And then as they progress and get older, or if things happen that aren't ideal, then to use those opportunities. So it's not just like laying down the law, to use the opportunities where things do go a little off the charts to explain, you see, this is why it's so important for you to remain within this space that we've created for you, because in this space, you are free to be everything you can be, and you can go and explore and discover new things, whatever, but at least it gives you and me the assurance that you are okay, that nothing can go horribly wrong, and that I am here for you when you need me. So the more we can explain the reasons around things, and this is, I know we've got many stories, but when my child was in primary school and he went to a new school, and I realized that some of the boys in his class were very questionable characters. They did not come from quite the same um, understanding that we came from. And I was so worried about it, because now your child's new in the school, new influences, all these things, and boys will be boys. So I used that opportunity to hear what his experiences were, and then to try and gauge, is he feeling safe in the situation, first of all? And secondly, when he sees them doing things that he knows aren't right, what does he do about it? How does he address it? And just by having the conversations, we were able to avoid many unnecessary detours, because as things were happening, I would ask him, so what did you see? What did you pick up? What do you think about those kids? What do you think their background is? Why do you think they think of it like this? And the more we were just able to talk about things, I felt like we resolved stuff without it even being an issue. We were able to look at things from everyone's perspective. He got the answers he was looking for before he actually got himself into a situation where that answer became really urgent. And one day I picked him and I said, "Oh, I can see they're up to trouble again." He said, "Mom, it's crazy." And I said, "Well, have they tried to include you in this?" He said, "Of course not. I'm not that stupid." And I just thought to myself all the way home, I was like, thank God, thank God, thank God, because that shows you, by not just constantly being there to try and enforce the rules, but to actually have the conversation around it, so that they can see, oh, she's not trying to limit me. She's trying to help me in this situation. She's trying to look out for me. Oh, this is what love looks like. She's just trying to protect me. I think there's a lot of unnecessary resistance that you can eliminate just because they see how you think. It's not just something that comes down with this voice of authority and now I've got to obey, come what may. It's the more you are able to understand and feel like you are engaging in the process, I think the more likely the child is to accept whatever rules come their way because they can see why it's designed to protect them and to help them and not to limit them or, you know, as we all thought, my mom just doesn't want me to have fun. That's why I can't do these things. And of course, that's the last thing. And then the biggest thing for the parents, always, always, always just be consistent. Whatever goes today has to go tomorrow. Because tomorrow we know we're not going to feel as strong as today, maybe. And yet everyone needs to know. This is the rule every day, come what may. So I think that those two things are really important. Understanding and consistency, very key.
Yes, I agree. And when you build that in the younger years, there's an expectation for it in the older years. But what's happening there is this push, this need, this desire for independence, because the child is now, they can see the horizon of, I'm going to be 18, I'm going to be on my own, I'm going to be doing these things. And what the brain is helping with anyway is just moving them towards adulthood. That's what has to happen, right? But I think that, so there's generally a lot more pushback to rules that happens in the teenage years. But again, I think that as long as there's conversation around it, and ideally that the rules are being created with the kids, with the teenagers, that there's an understanding that, you know, if it's an 11 o'clock curfew, why is it an 11 o'clock curfew? Find a way to explain the framework in a way in which it really, really makes sense to kids. And then be prepared to flex on it, you know, be prepared to get that phone call at 11:01 that says, I know I'm not home, but this is what happened, and you don't freak out. All of these things that demonstrate you love them, you're putting things in place that are for their safety and their well-being. You're able to be somewhat flexible, and therefore the trust is there. And I think that once the trust is there, there's so much that you can do with that. So that's, I think the teenage years become more difficult because there's momentum is there, but at the same time, you, as a parent, you want your child to be 18 and able to handle the world. You've got to give them not only the tools, but the opportunity as they're getting older to find themselves in situations where they have to make decisions, and they have to work through things.
Yeah. I want to encourage parents, if you are at all able, to bite your tongue and not say everything that comes to mind just because you are really panicked or you are really concerned or you are really overwhelmed by the situation, is just try and deal with it in a really calm way, because that's going to help your child a lot. Isla, I'm sure that is something that you often speak to parents and children about, because I think there's so much to really be worried about. There really is. We live in a different world where anything goes, and anything that could remove trust, either way, should be avoided at all costs. I think trust for me is just still, whatever relationship you find yourself in, whether it's a friendship or marriage or with your children, with colleagues, trust, I think today is probably the most important thing that we all need to be working towards. I don't know if you also feel like that, but that for me is really a major thing. I think if there was more trust in the world, we'd all be happier, easier going people. It's more about what.
I agree with that, and I think the other aspect to trust is respect. And I think in a lot of cases, as parents, we forget that we need to be respecting our children in the same way as we respect our neighbors or our work colleagues or our spouses. So the two for me go together very, very strongly. And I think that as we're raising our kids, we want respect from them, but it has to go both ways.
Yes.
It gets developed because it goes both ways.
Awesome. Yes, thank you. I so am with you. Beginning to.
Oh. So we'll close today here. Thank you, Marelise. Another great conversation. And parents, we encourage you to please send us more questions. We love answering your questions. We love working with things that you're working with, so that we're in the moment with you. And wish you a great rest of the week.
Thank you, and to you too. See you next week. Bye.